Good morning, good day, bonjour, monker. It's your Archeon of Wisdom, and we're here on this lovely rainy little Sunday to discuss the recent allegations making their way onto the internet zeitgeist. That's right, today we're going to be talking about Katy Perry versus Ruby Rose. Alright, now let's get into the details. So, starting 1.1, how this came about. Justin Bieber did a set at Coachella. Katy Perry commented on it. This seemed to then trigger Ruby Rose, who made a sideways, like a kind of passing comment. She said something along the lines of, Katy Perry essayed me, so who cares what she thinks, right? Then this tumbled into the whole entire story, right? So within the internet guidelines, I will recount to you guys the story. Australia, Melbourne, Australia. Ruby Rose and Katy Perry are out at a nightclub together. Ruby Rose says that she overconsumed and then laid down on her best friend's lap to kind of gather herself, at which Katy Perry came and removed her own underwear and placed her genitalia upon Ruby Rose's face until she woke up, of which she then projectile vomited, according to Ruby Rose. Guys, okay? So, quite the incident, quite the, big visible incident. Now, I will say, they're two famous people at a nightclub. Obviously, they were not in the whole entire regular nightclub. They were in a VIP area. However, statements do say that it was a bit of a PR nightmare because Katy and Ruby were coming out to the dance floor and dancing with people and then going back and forth, right? So, but the VIP room was not just the two of them, right? There were other witnesses there as well. So you would think that this incident would be hard to miss. Okay. Maybe, part of me wants to say that it would be hard to miss. Obviously, you'd be like, oh, that girl's throwing up, right? Maybe you wouldn't care that much because it is a club, it is a nightclub, and we all know how things go around there. People do get intoxicated, so, incidents do happen. But, however, again, it's not, it being such a big incident, in front of all these people, in front of Ruby, her friend, so at least one other witness was in direct line view of what was happening, right? So, that is what Ruby Rose is claiming. Now, this has kind of spiraled out into a much bigger incident now. It is being investigated by Melbourne police in Australia. Because that's where the incident took place. That's where Ruby Rose is from, Australia, I believe, or had a living residency in Australia at the time. Don't quote me on that. But anyway, so, it is being investigated now. To speak on the differences between America and Australia, it's not super different. However, Australia, most other countries other than America, guys, are not very keen on extradition. It's not something they regularly do. I know America is very, quick to extradite people, but not how it works the rest of the world, right? So I don't see any extradition happening. Honestly, Katy Perry could, in fact, just not give a statement. She hasn't given a direct statement really about the whole incident as it is. So I could very much see her not giving a statement to Melbourne police. she's within her right to do that, of course, but I mean, getting on a 15-hour flight, girl, you know what I mean? Excuse me. Oh, the demons are coming out of me. When it comes to investigation, they've got a detective, they've got an SA crimes detective working on it, they have an SA department working on it, which is great that they have specialty departments to provide that kind of care. You know, in my opinion, me personally as a detective, I would want to investigate everybody. You know, I would want to speak to Katy. I would want to speak to Ruby. I would also want to speak to the other victims who are coming out. Now, we'll touch on that in a moment as well, but I would definitely want to perform multiple interviews. Now, it is kind of a tricky case. It's going to be a case that depends heavily on corroborating evidence, heavily on things like supporting evidence, things that support the behavior as well, because there's just not going to be, you're not going to have CCTV cameras, you're not going to have, I mean, it was 15 years ago, so it's going to be tricky to collect evidence, physical evidence, right? I did also hear that the particular club that the incident supposedly happened at is now closed as well. I did see the club owner speak to the press. Now, he claims that he does not know anything about the incident. I feel like that is neither here nor there. Yes, he is a key witness, so his testimony does matter. It's not that it doesn't. However, it would not deter me from going forward to listen to other victims and testimonies as well, especially because it's a bit of a nothing burger. Like, he's just not sure he remembers or heard anything about it. And that could be the bias of someone who sees drunk people every night. We don't know what kind of owner he was, so we don't know if he was even physically around, or if he was otherwise occupied during the incident, or if staff just did not tell him. Because that's all very possible, right? I'm not saying he's a liar, but that's all very possible stuff. Especially with high-profile clients, you know, when I know from personal experience, when you're working with a high-profile client, you want to really show your own independence and stuff to your boss. So it's very possible that it was just handled by staff and not otherwise communicated to him. So that's very possible. Like I said, that would not deter me from going forward to looking at other victims. Now, we'll touch on the other victims real quick. This is what makes the case particularly compelling to me, and what furthers my belief in Ruby Rose and my validation of her story, right? Of course, I'm going to believe a victim first until otherwise proven, right? But it does, I feel as if it does help the story, the point that there are multiple victims. Now, I'm not talking about 1, 2, or 3 victims, guys. I'm talking about 10 plus victims who have all shared differing stories about Katy Perry's behavior. Most of them are female, but a few of them are also male as well. Now, it's very possible that whenever a lot of allegations come out after an event of one breaking allegation, it's always possible that one or two of the people are just, doing a power play or trying to get something out of the situation, money, fame, whatever the motive is, right? But hardly ever do I see that all of those allegations are false, right? We've talked about this with James Charles before. When Def Noodles made his big oopsie report, 2 or 3 of those stories were false. But the majority of the rest of the stories, like Ethan's story, were corroborated and factual, right? So bear that in mind, guys. It's okay to be skeptical of things that are in the media, but let's give a bit of grace, to the victim. And just as a side note, I don't really care what Ruby Rose has done or how problematic she's been. Everyone deserves the right to come out and speak about their essay. That's everyone's right. If that happens to you, it doesn't matter. You have the right to speak about it. I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're a murderer. You know what I mean? Like, your trauma is still valid. Okay, guys? So we're not gonna even talk about that. That is the majority of the story, though, guys. We are going, like I said, the case is being investigated by a team in Melbourne. I do expect them to be gathering evidence and all of that stuff. I do not... Oh, if you're wondering about statute of limitations, because of the nature of the crime and it being SA, there's not really any time constraint that's going to be put on that. The laws in Australia have been updated to kind of reflect our own, where it's much more forgiving for crimes of an sexual nature, guys. So it will be very interesting to see what the Victoria Police does with this case and going forward. Now, we may not get a break in this case for a month or two, right? Because I will say Melbourne Police, Victoria Police is really good at media control. So they're very good at, feeding information and working with the media. So I'm not sure if we will get any big details other than that, but I will keep you guys updated. Let's bear in mind that Miss Katy Perry is a chronic sexual abuser, is a chronic harasser, has many, many stories, killed a nun allegedly. So keep that in mind, guys. I love you very much. Have a wonderful Sunday. Drink your water. Be kind to animals. And that's all. I'll see you next week, guys. Mwah. Bye.